with that particular rule with this board, my assumption is that you need 4 voting in favor, and that you have all 5 of you, I believe, can vote.
That's correct.
That's right.
So that's my understanding.
Why don't you say that?
That was my understanding, but I wanted a confirmation on that.
So you're looking at 4, 2/3 of 7.
2/3 of 7.
Thank you. This petition concerns property down in the campgrounds. I'm sure you're all familiar with the area. It's at 19 Park Place. And I have some pictures to just refresh your memory.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the property in question, and it's basically a 2-story structure, and as Mr. Nicola outlined in his covering letter, according to the Board of Assessors information, the structure was constructed somewhere around 1900. We all know about that most of those structures, I believe, were in the campground area were constructed during that era. The structure has minimal foundation, mostly stone and basement. The roof is newer asphalt shingle. He describes it as eclectic construction. It's got one side, the first floor is painted clapboard on the lower half and painted cedar shingles on the upper half. The windows are 1960s style with storm windows. The 2 diamond grill windows that you see in the picture on the second floor are also modern style, single pane, and not of historic design or construction. The building walls are conventional framed, not timber framed, with 3x4 studs, about 16 inches on center. And there is a beam installed in the living room that supports the second floor that is not structurally adequate for the load that it is supporting. By way of context, my clients have previously been to the Harwich Board of Health, and I've represented them before the Board of Health and the Board of Appeals, and they've received approval from the Board of Health to demolish and rebuild anew, and the Board of Appeals has also issued a special permit approving the demolition and reconstruction. So they have all of those permits and approvals in place, and this is their last hurdle. So, to walk through the bylaw, the conditions in terms of the bylaw, of the Harwich bylaw, to the best of our knowledge, the dwelling is not listed on either the National Registry of Historic Places or the Massachusetts Register of Historic Places. To the best of our knowledge, it is not directly associated with one or more historically noteworthy persons or events, or with political, cultural, economic, or social history of the town. So that we're not aware of any famous people that used to live there. I mean, the Eldridges are there now, so that helps. But there were no events or persons that resided there or took place there. This structure does not possess particular architectural value or significance that is either representative of a recognized architectural style. As Mr. Nicola pointed out, it's an eclectic style. I would call it piecemeal. And nor is it from a period or era that has particular historical significance in terms of the style of construction or the method of construction or the materials used by virtue of association with an historically noteworthy architect. So there's no, Mr. Bradley, you didn't have anything to do with building this house, did you? as a noteworthy architect?
You did? No, I'm afraid I didn't.
Okay. But in any event, seriously, when you look at this picture, and when you are in the neighborhood and looking at the other residences and dwellings in that neighborhood, in my mind, this stuck out not because it seemed to have historical significance, but because it didn't fit in. It didn't have any particular Cape Cod colonial design or style to it. It's got an overhang on the roof, a cupola, looks like what used to maybe be an open porch, got enclosed and clapboards, combined with painted cedar shingles, and then these diamond-shaped design windows that are from the 60s or 70s. So I'm not seeing that there is historical significance to the architecture or style, and it's not on a register of historically significant buildings. So I'm not understanding why the board might be inclined to take jurisdiction of this particular demolition project, especially since if you drive down the street, there are 3 or 4 houses under construction that have been complete demolitions and reconstructions. There are more that will probably be coming up shortly. I've been involved with 3 or 4 or 5 down right along the shoreline by the town parking lot, and you turn the corner and go up Ocean Grove and Ocean Ave, I'm sorry. Those are all have been complete demolitions and reconstructions. So I'm not understanding why the board would hesitate on this one, especially where it does not appear to have a Cape Cod-y look. And if it did, it wouldn't be any different from the ones that the board has previously not taken jurisdiction on. I was told the word iconic was used last time. To me, that does not mean historical significance. It means maybe quirky and unorthodox, but that does not make it historical or culturally significant. So I know that our role here in presenting the petition is to kind of run down the house as opposed to building it up, but I'm not having a problem with running this house down. If you were thinking of imposing a 1-year demolition delay in hopes that someone would buy this house or be willing to pay to move it off-site, I would venture to say that due to the size of that house, you could not lift it up. First of all, you'd have trouble with it possibly imploding because the beam is not going to structurally support it, and the walls are not of particularly strong construction. But you'd have to, according to Mr. Nicola, you'd have to cut it up to get it down the streets and get it out of the campgrounds because it's rather large in comparison to the existing dwellings there. So I don't think as a practical matter, it makes sense to, I don't think it's realistic to hope that someone would move this house to a different location because they wanted to restore it or anything of that nature. So all that being said, we would ask that the board not take jurisdiction of this and make a determination of non-applicability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. First of all, just to clarify, obviously you wouldn't be sitting there and we wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't on the historic inventory of the town of Harwich. And obviously we're obligated by the town of Harwich and the people of the town of Harwich to represent anything that is on the historic inventory. That's as much as I have to say about that. Any other questions or discussion with board members? Go ahead, Gina.
Well, I saw the outside of it. I've not seen the inside except to sort of peek through the window. I totally agree with you that it's sort of eclectic and piecemeal. And it looks like a lot of stuff, if you will, has been added on to the outside of it. I just wonder if the core of it, if there's not, if you took off all the external little L's and such that were in there, and you had a 4-square building, if you wouldn't have something that looks more like an historic property and might be worth looking at in terms of using that as the base for some other sort of structure.
May I respond?
Go ahead.
Okay. I can circulate these pictures that Mr. Nicola took.
I think, other than Bob Doan, I think almost everyone has the pictures.
I do have the pictures.
Okay, then you have it.
Yeah.
The inside.
I don't know, do you have the inside ones?
But in answer to Ms. Steiner's comments, I would say that you could probably, that would probably be true of most of the dwellings, that if you strip them down, they probably started out as Cape Cod, traditional Cape Cod design. But again, that doesn't make them this particular house of historical significance.
Jurisdiction anyway.
No. The interior photos are really not, it's not part of our jurisdiction. Just basically what we're looking at is the street view of the properties, is what we refer to many times as a streetscape. We try to take into consideration the neighborhood and how the neighborhood would or would not be affected. And just to address a question, I guess I would ask to council, how would you represent any differently any other parcel in this neighborhood? I.e., say a gambrel or a Gothic Victorian. Are those considered iconic or eclectic in your opinion? I guess that's what I want to know.
Well,
Just a question, not that it's.
I'm familiar with the campgrounds, and in riding around and looking at the other houses, they all seem to have, they're like 1.5 stories with a little A-frame for a half second floor. The majority of them. I would say that none of them on their own, from an architectural standpoint, have any particular significance, historical or cultural significance, as opposed to any of the other houses. So my answer would be that it would be okay with me what's been happening, which is to demolish and replace gradually because of obsolescence. These houses are old now. They are and in great need of repair, and you do have a certain amount of people that want them as second homes, and they want a full foundation or a better foundation, and they want to shore it up, and they want to rebuild. And it turns out that it is more cost effective in most situations. It's costlier to rehab than it is to demolish and replace. So, like it or not, we have that going on. Number one, I don't particularly have a problem with it myself, because there aren't any, you can't single out any one house and say, oh, that's more historically significant than another. And I know that there was, 3 or 4 years ago, this board, the planning department was circulating correspondence to the neighborhood. It's on in the town's website, saying that the board would like to, or is thinking about, the HDHC is thinking about reviving a project to be known as the campgrounds, and designating it as a historic district. And there's a map on the website that shows this, and we're inside the confines of that map. However, this has not been adopted. So if the board was inclined to make a decision tonight based upon what the board would like to see down there, then I would say that you're not upholding your responsibilities as members of the commission, because you have to decide these cases on what the actual law is, what the bylaw presently says, and not what the board would like to have down there. So the bylaw is, as I went through at the beginning, point by point, that's the basis for deciding this case, not what you'd like to see to happen down in the campgrounds, or we need to do something now, and maybe we start with this house and maybe hold this off until we, with a demolition delay, until we get a bylaw passed in the future. Well, that's, to me, you just can't do that.
I don't think, just to address that, and anyone, please feel free to speak as soon as I finish. I think one of the inherent issues that we've had here in the town of Harwich, but particularly in this neighborhood, is that now these properties are suddenly running up against the historical significance of the 100-year inventory. And one at a time, as they are brought to as a homeowner brings the plans or proposals to the building department's responsibility is to refer to historic. And up until this point in time, what we've been getting is a lot of zoning relief from ZBA for many reasons, not necessarily hardship, but unfortunately, when someone purchases a home in Ocean Grove, they're purchasing something that has some historic significance, and we wouldn't have been asked by the Board of Selectmen to anticipate or entertain the possibility of a historic district if there wasn't something there that the town felt was worthy of restoration or protection. So having said that, and then one other thing, we've, through ZBA, found in cases where parcels aren't large enough, there's a parcel on Atlantic Avenue that was given zoning relief, and no consideration was ever made for a parking place for a car. And now the car is parked in the public parking place where a town beachgoer could possibly park a car in the summertime, and it's being used as part of the real estate now. So I think that just to educate the audience just a little bit, this isn't something that HDHC just decided, wow, we're going to go and find a place that's historic and make it into it. There are people sitting right in this room that are not in favor of it and have not been, and there haven't been enough people from Ocean Grove that have come forward and said, let's just do it. We've got letters and emails and so forth and so on, but we've never filled the room with people either one way or the other. So that's just historic information. I'm just giving you background, that's all.
Okay. I'm not, if I can, Mr. Chairman, I'm not understanding what a car parking on the town parking lot has to do with the Historic Commission.
It doesn't have anything to do with the Historic Commission, but what it does have to do is the fact that zoning relief is given so freely in this particular neighborhood. And obviously, I think you just said that you've already received zoning relief.
Yes, and I can tell you that I handled that case in front of the Board of Appeals where the parking lot, where the car is allowed to park there, because historically, that is where the car had been parked for the previous house. So if you're going to demolish the house and replace it or rehab it, you're not going to take away the ability to park your car for the homeowner. So the board struggled with that and came up with that as the best solution under the circumstances. And unfortunately, the current owner has a smaller type car. So I know which one you're talking about, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the Board of Appeals, but I can tell you that it's not an easy road to hoe with them, and it's getting more and more difficult. But there have been cases from the Appeals Court of Massachusetts in the last 5 years that have loosened the rein somewhat. It's not the board, it's the case law that has come down and changed it from a variance to special permit and made it a little bit easier for relief. But we'd also like to point out, if I may, that when I talked about rehabbing, that the Eldridges don't have to demolish and replace. They could rehab the building. As I said, it's more cost-effective to demolish and replace. They've got everything in all their permits, save this one, in place, but they could renovate this house and cut off that overhang roof, make it look so it's not so iconic, so to speak, and come out with a building that looks very similar to that structure without the overhanging roof, without the cupola, that would be a much, in my opinion, a much better looking building that would not look too much differently from what you have here today. As a matter of fact, that's what that's what's been approved by the Board of Appeals, was they're not increasing the footprint. They are, Mr. Nicola has designed a structure that would fit on the same footprint almost exactly and look a lot like this building. So the point is that if the board sought a demolition delay, my clients would have the option of saying, okay, we'll wait that out. We don't want to, but they could proceed with a rehab project and still accomplish what they intend to accomplish anyway.
Not necessarily. If it's a partial demolition, you still have to come before this board.
I know that there are still hurdles to be overcome.
Right.
But the point is that if the end product is still coming out to look like what's there now, then what is the board really accomplishing by imposing a one-year demolition delay? When anybody that wanted to move that house would have to cut it because you can't get it down the street. So what is a practical matter, what is the board really accomplishing if they impose a demolition delay? Are they saving anything of historical significance? No. Are they causing a financial hardship to the Eldridges? Yes. Are they going to end up with a better situation there in the long run? No. I just don't see the practicality of it.
Okay, members of the board, I'll let you weigh in one at a time. Pat?
I have been over to the house and I have looked in the window and I have seen that there is quite a bit of reconstruction that has already been done in the building. And the presenter last month said that the cost of demoing and rebuilding was almost the same as reconstructing the inside of the building. And I personally think that house has its own little charm. I think there could be things that are changed, like the front porch, but I really think that it should be considered to rehab it, to use your word, that house.
Mr. Chairman, I located this picture. May I circulate that? I don't know if you folks have a copy of that?
Yeah, I did have a copy of
You
that.
do?
It may
Okay.
be in the file, but go ahead,
All
Bill.
right.
Go ahead and circulate it.
Thank you. This is the front. Why can't they do that to it?
Moving along, Mr. Bradley.
Well, just a few small comments. We're not here for the practicality of it. Our instructions pretty much are to make an attempt to preserve buildings which are indicative of their time period in the town. And so we put a 100-year label on them. That's by town instruction. This building has been pretty badly bastardized, and it's really in very bad shape, I have to say that, in terms of design. I don't know the structure of it, but I'm sure that that can be remedied. I don't have a worry about that. What the board, I think, would like to see is an attempt by people who buy these buildings or own them to restore them or make some attempt to bring them back to the time period in which they were built. And the fact that the area there has not yet been identified as an historic district doesn't really affect this, because this is on a survey, in the 100-year survey, so we have jurisdiction over it. The roof that you complained about, the overhang, actually is typical of the period. And if they hadn't messed with the sides, the elevations of the building, and made them so horribly contrary to what the building was before, I think the roof would read very well, just being left alone. Perhaps the shingles should be changed. But I have always questioned people coming to this board and saying how expensive it was to try to restore something rather than to tear down and build a new building. I've never seen anybody come with figures to this board and show exactly what the differential was on that. It's been a long time, and nobody's doing it. So I really do question that. And I think very few people have made real, I shouldn't say that, a lot of the people that come here don't make any real effort to go through a pricing for restoration. They don't even talk to any designers. They just come in with a contractor and say that this is the way out that they want. So a lot of what was said in the presentation right now, I think is not either applicable to what we're dealing with or justified. And I think I think this is the sort of building that ought to be dealt with in a more precise manner, perhaps. The word iconic, I don't think fits into it right now. And I think that I would impose the delay because I think that there should be some effort made as to what the restoration cost would be and how the building would look with the restoration rather than tearing the thing down. And we have no control over what goes up. It could be a glass box, which might be nice. I don't know. Anyway, I'd like to hear the rest of the commission before I make a decision.
Just observation. The renderings are for visualization, excuse me, I can't speak. Visualization purposes only, may differ slightly from actual. That's what I just read. Go ahead, Gene.
That's what the computer does. or
Generates, okay.
You have to qualify the visual.
One of the things that I love to do in my spare time is walk down around through the campgrounds. And I think one of the reasons I like to do it is because all of the places are different. And so having something quirky is an advantage. And while I think that, as Mr. Bradley said, this has been definitely bastardized, I think once it's cleaned up, I love the roof line. I think the roof line just adds oodles of charm and gives you a sense of what that street might have looked like at the time when the house was built. So I would definitely be in favor of really looking hard at restoration and remembering again that, as I'm sure I don't have to tell any of you, is that, you know, we're only really concerned about the outside and the streetscape and the scale with the street. Whatever is done on the inside is certainly up to the owner's discretion. But the more that it can continue to add to the streetscape as it does now, I think the better off it would be.
Thank you, Gene. Bob?
Yeah, I really can't add anything more than what's previously been said. I do think it's, the eclectic appeal of it is appropriate for the campground area, and I do think it is worth looking at restoration.
Okay, having heard members of the board have spoken, the options that you have on the table, the board could invoke the demolition delay. We could offer to the proposing persons an opportunity to take another 30 days to revisit the plan and come back to the board with a proposal that may be more in keeping with the architectural integrity of the original structure. I think my own opinion is that those wonderful rafters and those beams that give it that quirkiness, as Jean described, sort of make it look a little bit between a bungalow and a Bavarian chalet is interesting. And once again, I think it adds to the streetscape. But the general consensus of the board, as you have heard, would be to invoke the demolition delay. We can move forward with that as you see fit, Mr. Kroll.
Okay, I need a moment to talk with my clients.
1 second,
Thanks.
go ahead. You confer. We're gonna go through the next hearing, which is the barn. And then at that point in time, if, I'd really like to get these minutes done if I can, but.
Wanna get out of here?
Without Miranda, I've got such a, told Bob was gonna take over for me. I wanna get as much business done as I can, because if I excuse myself at this point in time, you won't be able to get a majority. Yeah. So I wanna do the best I can. Yeah.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm seeing double. I had a big meeting this morning, and
you-
carried on and on and on and on.
Is there scotch
I'm
involved?
also chairman of that board, so that was.
With a martini lunch?
No, not that today. My goal would be to try to move forward through the next two if I can.
Very well.
Well, I've been listening to you.
We'll put this on hold because there's no representation here. I'd just like to
I
get
can't
to the
let this
minutes.
go without doing something.
David might
can't
help us
do
out
it.
quickly
Things-
with this one over here under old business. And if Jean has something to add on to the Brooks Library, then I'd just love to get those minutes done because we're so far behind.
Because of just of the charm building. And it says that the house next door to it, it's been added on and finished, but it has its own charm also,
That's right.
you know?
It's that funky quality that you try to say about everything. You know,
I'm just waiting, I'm sorry to give these people the floor before they take any other questions from the audience.
you know,
She's probably gonna. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're not a direct abutter or anything like that, so there's no conflict.
Did you get the library?
Did I do what?
Get the library to change
The parking lot?
the lights.
The lights in the library? Where did you?
Did you complain to the library?
No. You know what I asked? I was trying to do some Christmas photos of the brochures and website, and those high sodium lights didn't allow us to get the natural light, so I asked them if they'd shut them off for half an hour so we could get the shot.
Is that all it was?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Do we have the floor, or does the,
Well, I was gonna let you,
Okay.
give the board the results of your
Okay, all right.
of your conferring, and then, we'll move forward.
The Eldridges and Mr. Nicola have spent a lot of time previously on the issue of remodeling and rehabbing. The cost, not just Mr. Nicola, but other contractors, the costs for rehabbing, correct me if I'm wrong, would vary anywhere from an additional $40,000 to an additional $100,000 to rehab it versus demolishing and replacing. And we could get you figures, Mr. Bradley, if you're looking for that. But what we're also more interested in perhaps is if we came back in a month with that rendering that you have there, Mr. Winston, and redesigned the roof so that it retained the overhang and that look to it, would that, would the board be moved in our direction at that point? Because the previous approvals that we have with the Board of Health and with the Board of Appeals, and you don't have jurisdiction over the interior of the house, as you've mentioned, we can't change that at this point, but we could change the roof and minor aspects of the streetscape or the exterior of the building. If that is the key issue, then the Eldridges would seriously consider that
Let me
on a demolition and rebuild.
Let me just say this, Mr. Kroll. Relative to reconstruction, architectural design, and so forth, once again, our board does not have the right to say to any owner, builder, architect that we would suggest or we would propose, and so forth and so on. Basically, we're appointed here to this board is to represent for the town of Harwich what is significantly historic and so forth and so on. There is a case that might give you some precedence, and I only bring it up because this is a particular case that ultimately it was withdrawn and never moved forward, but the people of the town of Harwich and the historic district was, a case came before us for snow wind demolition. And our board spent months and months working with the owners of Witchmere and the corporate architects and so forth and so on. And ultimately, we were able to strike some kind of an agreement that the iconic structure that you look at across from Witchmere Harbor would be somewhat represented in the new design. That was not something that the board required. It was something that the architects and the corporation at Witchmere chose to work with as far as an alternative. Once again, they had a situation where they had a building that was crumbling, a foundation that was built in the 1800s as a snow cottage, and everything around it had changed, much as this has.
You had that tower.
Right, and when you looked across Witchmere Harbor, there would be this great shoebox as what was originally proposed here. Once again, the Historic District Commission has no, in any way, authority to say to you, do this or do that structurally, and we'll look at it in a more kind fashion. I'm just giving you what actually historically took place, and it was all the proposal that came from the floor to the board. And over months and months of time, we worked together and came up with something that would have made the people of the town of Harwich, the district commission, and the audience happy. So I'm not going to answer anything beyond the information that I'm giving you now, but any member of the board wants to talk about anything other than that. We are really limited in the scope of what we legally can say. Invoke the demolition delay, give you 30 days, because we can invoke the demolition delay, which we have done in the past, and we've heard arguments for that, whereby the 30 days is now going to be considered in the process, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Well, what I hear you saying is that your authority is to either invoke the demolition delay or not.
Pretty much. I mean, I'm welcoming anyone on the board to please, if there is any way of clarifying that. But it's
But the
we're
base.
pretty limited, is what I'm trying to say.
The basis for your leverage, so to speak, other than that, is that we're over 100 years old, so we have to be in front of you.
What happened was the town of Harwich, and we certainly aren't the only towns all over this nation of ours, have historic district commissions and have historically significant homes, and they have demolition delay bylaws going anywhere from 6 months all the way up to 2 years, and sometimes even more than that. And basically, yes, it's a vote that the town took, and the idea is to put a hardship on the owner and make you think twice when you buy the real estate that it is historically significant, and therefore you buyer beware going forward. You understand that?
And certainly the Eldridges in this particular case did so with their eyes open, and their eyes are open now, and they could wait the year out, demolish, and again, I say, what has the board accomplished if you have not retained anything of this structure? Because they don't have to build that house.
Sadly, you're correct. Sadly, you're correct. I'm not going to open myself or the board to legal suits because we're doing beyond what is in our
Understood.
our focus.
What I'm trying to determine is whether it's in my client's interest to come back in 30 days, spend money on more plans, only to find that the board says, no, that we're imposing the delay.
Is there any member of the board that would like to say anything that would help Mr. Kroll in this conundrum that he finds himself?
I'll walk into it. I think the problem is that, in listening to this stuff, that if there's a demolition, we have no control over what goes up. And we have no understanding of what goes up because there's no presentation to us of what goes up. So we have no idea what will occur in that particular site. There is concern in the town, which has been expressed by many people within the administration and just civilians themselves, that the Ocean Grove is something worth trying to keep what's left of it and trying to enhance it and to probably restore it. The word is always sort of being bandied around here, but nobody seems to understand it, but to try to somehow renovate it in a fashion which would echo what was there before. And I don't, the problem for this board is that if we let the demolition go, all control is gone. And by putting in the demolition control for us, for the board, at least we have a chance of having the ownership come towards us and say, what is it you really want? What is it that we need to do? Whatever. And it gives us some chance to have a dialogue.
And that's what I'm trying to do, but I'm being told by the chairman that you can't commit on anything.
What do you mean you can't commit on anything?
Can't commit to anything. That I'm asking the board, if we retain the soffits, the overhang on the roof, would the board be more inclined next month to not impose the delay?
You offered one thing, you offered only that. But I would personally say that I think that needs a little bit of work in terms of what the materials on the exterior are. We have nothing to go on at all. And if we could have a presentation to us that was, this isn't just tonight, I mean, this happens here all the time. If there was some sort of serious presentation of the ownership saying, well, these are we are having these materials on the exterior because we consider them to be, after some study, they consider it to be appropriate to the neighborhood, and the roof lines and the chimney, so whatever is involved.
You really want half clapboard and half painted shingles?
Nobody ever said that. You're saying it.
I'm making inquiries of what you might be looking for to have a dialogue. As you say, it's not my own particular conundrum. Anybody that comes before this board has, and the board has this conundrum, and so I'm trying to solve the problem here.
Well, I don't know if it's solvable, because I think some of the controls on the board are very difficult.
But
I've been sitting here tonight trying to seriously see what the conflict is after all these years. What is it that's causing this consistent conflict? And nobody wants to hurt anyone. Nobody's trying to do that, and everybody wants to improve the town. I know the Eldridges do, certainly. And I think that the conundrum that you're referring to, I think, is how to get the best out of what the process is trying to control. And I'm not too sure how that's.
I think if you go back maybe to the streetscape, if we go back to the what we originally were talking about with the streetscape, and how when in so many of the historic cases we're talking about buildings that have reached the stage of neglect that you've described. We hear this at every hearing that we go to. I mean, it's mildew and it's rotten, it's this and it's that. That comes with antiquity. That's part of it. If restoration never has taken place and obsolescence has taken over, then obviously we're going to lose it. The only suggestion that I can make to help you without saying something that's beyond the, is if you were to look at what happened, what was approved, it was a massive project that was presented to this board by the Wychmere Harbor Club and the Snow and Resort. They basically, we had no interest in anything other than the streetscape and the view across the harbor as to what was there and what was presented. And they kind of did the work themselves. I can't say more than that, really. I don't see legally that I have the right to do.
But question, was the end result, Mr. Chairman, that the board decided because of those modifications to not impose the one-year demolition delay?
That the demolition delay was not imposed, and
Because a
and the
compromise
demolition
was reached.
approved.
Because a
But
compromise
the
was
project
reached.
never went forward for financial reasons.
But it was a real collaborative
It was a
effort.
big collaborative, yeah.
A lot of time and effort.
A lot of work went into it on this part of this board and a part of the architects.
We could have another moment, Mr. Chairman, just to make the decision about whether to come back next month or to let you go ahead and take a vote tonight.
Okay. Lindsay Hale.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Hale. I'm a owner, resident, summer person of Ocean Grove, and I just wanted to go on record with these comments. First of all, it's not just my opinion. We talk a lot at the campgrounds, and when it became clear that the Agatha was going on the market, there was a lot of discussion about it. And a lot of the consensus was this is one of the biggest eyesores in the entire campgrounds. And the fact that you're considering it to not be eligible for the demolition delay waiver is kind of appalling to a lot of us. It's in disrepair. If the new owners decide to let the demolition delay go out, then we've got an empty building sitting there for a year.
May I just ask one question?
Yeah.
Just to clarify, are you asking a question of this board, or are you
No, I'm just
expressing an
making,
opinion?
I'm making a comment.
Okay.
And my basic comment is that if you refused to allow the demolition of this building, I can't imagine anything that you would allow. And
Well,
it's troublesome.
It's case by case, number one. And number two, if it's on the historic inventory, then that
And where
causes
is
us
this
to-
historic inventory? Is it just the fact that it's 100 years old or more?
The historic inventory is part of the inventory that's with the planning department, the building department, and the town of Harwich. It's reviewed and updated constantly.
Right, I
In
know
fact,
that's the one
it's-
Miranda
it's
was
on our
working on.
agenda.
It's not on the website anywhere. I'd like to know where it can be found.
You can access it through the building department.
All right. Well, that's my comment anyway. I'm just really upset that a building in this condition, whether some people think it's charming or not,
And you're-
others think it's
and
an
you're
eyesore
entitled to your
and needs
opinion,
to
and
go.
it will be duly noted, and I thank you very much.
So, Mr. Eldridge
sir.
would like to address the board if he could.
Yes.
Thank you, and for entertaining us this evening. Couple of clarifications, ma'am. There was no reconstruction inside. All we did was take down the sheetrock to actually see what the condition of the house is, and quite frankly, it's pretty appalling, if not bordering on dangerous, to be honest with you. And Mr. Bradley, you had commented that people in the past had not perhaps done their due diligence on expenses, and I can assure you we did. We went to multiple vendors. Just to give you a little history, we've lived next to that house for the last 7 years. And it certainly does have a little charm. It certainly is a little bit different, but that doesn't make it historical. And we spend our time with the neighbors, and we're not some Washershores. So I kind of get a little bit what you're saying, but it's, the difference in the cost to remodel it is significant. And the house that we're proposing is minus the soffits, really is what's there now. And so it's troubling a little bit for us to go through this process, and when in fact all we've tried to do is retain as much of the charm as the house, and replace it, because that's really what needs to be done. And there's a significant cost, and whether you take my word for it or not is fine, but we did our homework, we did our due diligence, and it's a significant amount of money. So that's really all I wanted to say. Thank you. Yeah.
So the Eldridges are inclined to have you take a vote this evening.
Okay. Okay. Before you, the case has been represented, and I think everyone's clear as to what has been discussed. And the question is, the board is being asked to move forward, and given the inclination of the board, I think it's understood that the demolition delay may well be invoked. I have one more question from the audience. Does the board want to listen to one more question? We haven't eliminated. Okay, go ahead,
Greg,
Mr. Urbano.
Just one quick question in terms of demolition delay and procedure. If the demolition delay is invoked, can the board withdraw it at any time should information be presented?
It's clearly up to the discretion of the board, and that has happened. What we have done in the past, we have invoked the demolition delay and started the time, and then we've had homeowners and contractors come back and work with the board, and we've come to an amicable decision that's helpful to the town and to the homeowner. That has happened. Yes, it has.
So if I put it in practical matter, if the Eldridges decided in 30 days to come back with additional information, and they asked the board would consider it?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
We've
you.
had definitive developers come before this board with the prearranged plans. It was predisposed and made clear to the board that their intention was to demolish the house, and they were just waiting for the board to invoke the demolition delay and wait out the year. I mean, that's the law. So you'd like us to go ahead and take action? All right. So it's been made and presented to the board that the property at 19 Park Place, that we take action relative to the guidelines of the Historic District Commission. So at this point in time, the question?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
Bob?
no, I don't have a question. I would like to move that we invoke a one-year demolition delay on HH 2016-01 at 19 Park Place at this time.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. It's a vote.
What was the total? Was it,
Well, the total is 4. I'm abstaining,
okay, I just
but
want to
with an abstention, that carries. Okay,
Thank you for your time.
you're very welcome. I'm moving right along.
Okay.
If you have a majority, if you have a majority, and the chair doesn't have to.
Case number HH 2016-02, intent, notice of intent, NOI, to demolish a structure over 100 years has been received for 1004 Route 28, map 25, parcel B1 in the CH1 zone. The applicant proposes to demolish the barn only. The property is listed on the Harwich Property Inventory List and on the Massachusetts Historical Survey website, MACRIS. The home is described as 1835, a Greek Revival structure. Minimal setback from the street, and mapping and records are dating back to 1858 show that the house was owned by G.H. Tripp, and in 1910 by the Road of Commissioner Ebenezer Weeks. All of the information provided here, Ebenezer Weeks, Janine, Kenneth DiStefano are the owners and applicants. And as best as the board could determine from last month's hearing, the age of the property is somewhat simultaneous, the barn to the home. We get more of a description of the home in this article here. And representing, Mr. and Mrs. DiStefano?
Yep.
I pronounce that wrong every time, don't I? DiStefano, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, I do want to take down the barn, and, I'm not touching the house, and the house is in your records, not the barn so much, but I have two antique buildings there that I'll be doing over. But considering that it's a barn that is in disrepair, and I need a place to live, so I'm just going to take the structure away and put a structure that matches the antique house, and I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay, we'll start as we did before. Bob, have you had a chance to bring yourself up to snuff on this one?
I'm just looking at it right
Okay.
now. Go ahead.
All right, I'll start with you, Pat.
I'm gonna pass for right now.
Okay. Bob?
Well, it's in bad shape, it's the barn. I wish we knew what was going to replace it.
I don't, I have pictures.
We have plans for what's going to replace it right
Do
there.
you?
We thought you already had.
I have,
Well, I have my-
he may not have it right here.
My house.
It wasn't important what was going there, but this is the house.
I don't
plan.
function very well.
And it was made by Chris Charles, a Patriot Builders. And, excuse me, I don't have a picture of the house with me, but,
Well, I have it in the packet. If anyone wants to see it, I have the packet here.
so it is gonna mimic the house and the coloring and siding.
Do you have the information you need?
I think so.
You're going to have a bedroom upstairs?
I am, and that will be my residence as well. And I can't live in a barn, so.
You can.
And what's going,
I promise the front building there, I'm gonna keep it as, like, it's a beautiful building.
It's a
inside.
gorgeous,
And that's why
gorgeous
I'm
house.
using it as
what's
a
going up there in
commercial building.
What's going up there in,
It doesn't have to be as efficient.
Right.
Adding this on.
they're putting the whole big house back up there, just taking the barn down and putting that up?
Yeah, about the same.
And
Same
actually,
size.
Same
yeah,
footprint, yes.
actually, a little less than the barn, because the barn is non-conforming, and I am going to make that building conforming to the lot lines of 10 feet.
Anyone wants? Basically, I just reiterate what I said at the previous hearing. We really don't have any jurisdiction over new construction, but it certainly sometimes is
At least we
helpful.
know.
Yeah.
Jean?
Well, the DiStefanos were nice enough to show me around the day that I poked around there. I love barns, and it's a beautiful barn, and you can see it from the street, but I agree that it's got some real problems
Yeah, it
structurally,
does.
and
And I really can't have any, even get a carpenter to get up there to replace
Yeah.
the shingles that blew off, because it's, not as structural. But there is another barn on, not so much barn, but it's the same type, a smaller one that we will have, and that will be transferred over to living space, that we did when we took the mixed-use permits. So that's another building, and I did do the roof on that building, and, I want to make them all look alike, so it's a pretty building.
right, well, you've got that beautiful, I mean, the house is lovely, and you've got that other stretch that goes, that wing, I guess it is,
Yeah.
that goes out,
That's a separate
That's
building,
what you're
that's that,
working on.
the one you were looking in. And that itself, I think, is older than the barn, but, I don't know what they did back in the day, but.
Bob?
I don't really have much opinion on this. I mean, it is a nice-looking barn, but it is off the street, and I'm not, you know, I know we've been pretty lenient on barns in the past, so.
Okay. Everyone's had a chance. I will entertain a motion.
Well, I would move that we vote to allow the demolition of the barn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the demolition be allowed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
That was an aye, Pat?
yes,
Okay.
sorry.
In that case, you have a majority.
Is it 4-0 or?
I'll abstain.
Yeah.
I thank you very much.
Thank you, we appreciate your help.
Okay, moving right along, we have Article C under public hearings, the townwide historic inventory update. I can let Mr. David Spitz, our town planner, give you a little bit of information on this, as he's been quite active as far as working with the inventory. And the board member also who has been working with David, Miranda, is not here tonight to make any representation, so I'll give the floor to David.
Yeah, Miranda's the only one who can tell you about the details of what's gone into it, so I'll just give you the overview. The part of the task was to, years have gone by, so that now there are new houses that are now 100 years old, so she documented that. She also looked at the existing list that you have. She looked at the Macris list. She looked at the assessor's database, and from those sources, she estimated dates that were sometimes the same and sometimes different. So there's an entire new list. I don't know if you folks have seen the list.
We have a
partial, which
Okay.
I have here which is
Okay.
just basically an idea. It's not complete.
The only thing that's important to to the planning and building departments is that the list be updated as soon as you're ready to do so, because then that's how we review any of the projects that come through the door, such as the two you've had tonight. So it'll make our life easier once you move on from the existing list to what we think is an improved list. And if you want to know why it's an improved list, you have to wait for Miranda. So,
Okay, any questions from the board?
I just have one. Does all this research that Miranda's doing and is publishing in these volumes of different parts of town, does that sit in the state?
no.
It doesn't go to the state for
Okay.
inclusion like the state?
There's two
map?
pieces of the work that Miranda did. One is the update of the 100-year. That is ready. That's ready to go forward. The other piece is a review of the historic quality, and she did the architectural part of it. She did it all around the town, a much larger list than was available before. To get on the Macris state list, you have to have a historical description and, an architectural description and a historical description. We chose, since she was more interested in doing the historic, that we would do as wide a brush as possible. We have CPC approval of another round of work, which would require approval at town meeting. And if that's done, then this commission has to decide exactly what that second round will include. For example, it could include doing the historical description that would then allow a number of properties to go on the Macris state list.
So, just a question.
Go ahead,
You're
Bob.
looking for approval, basically, of the new list, improved list?
100-year list, yes.
Okay.
No, it's entirely up to the board, understanding, of course, the backlog that we've had. Today, it's been my intention to try to clean up as much as we possibly can, getting down to the end of the agenda with minutes and so forth and so on. If the board feels that they have enough information relative to this inventory and you want to go ahead and approve it tonight, we can do such. Otherwise, it could be the inclination of the board to hold off until if you prefer more information. It's available to each and any citizen.
Do we know
It's
if
made public.
Miranda's gonna be here next month?
That's the reason that we do not know. I mean, we've been working with the skeletal board for the last couple of meetings, and consequently, the backlog is getting a little deeper, and we really probably should be asking the Board of Selectmen to recommend another member to our, at least to our alternate status, because we have a couple of members that haven't been attending regularly.
Wendy's not here either.
Wendy hasn't been here for a while, right? Right. So it becomes difficult to get work accomplished if we don't have a full board.
We have not, have we received the new 100-year list? I don't think I have seen it.
The list that we're
I
discussing
mean, I
right
have
this.
this.
Right.
Is this all?
Part of it.
This is just part of it. It is complete. And it's ready for anyone
Well, that's why I asked
to
since
review.
I have not been familiar with exactly what's gone to this board before,
Right.
so I didn't
This-
know if you had gotten the full list or not.
I don't,
No,
I have not
I
seen it,
think-
but it may be my fault.
Then you should have,
No.
you should have that.
Yeah.
I think Miranda had said when she presented this that she has several notebooks of it or volumes of it that she was having printed.
Most of the volume of what she has is the second piece.
Okay,
This is the first piece, and this is still long. It's, I don't know if it's 30 pages or whatever.
okay,
But this is a more manageable list than the several hundred pages she's put together.
okay, great. No, we have not seen that.
Yeah, we can get that to
Yeah,
you.
we should see it.
Okay. Then what we should do is we should set this, if we want to note, Shayla, that we'd like to take some action on this at the next hearing, so let's just sort of make it as our homework to look at this.
Do you need to move or anything to?
No.
No,
because it's already-
I just want to put this on, make a note to put this on our agenda for the next
Craig,
meeting.
I've got an administrative question.
Yes, sir.
Did you get the packet this time? I think some of you did and some of you didn't. Did any of you get? We sent out all of the minutes and the agenda?
I didn't get it, no.
Something went wrong in
And
the
I
pipeline then.
didn't, other than the fact that I did come in, went into my file and I pulled it from my file. And it seems now, historically, when Elaine used to do this, didn't we used to come in and pick up our packets?
Yeah, or they would be at the
See,
meeting.
we've had a little
Well,
clerical,
And those that weren't picked up usually were.
we're usually at the table.
What's your preference? I mean, we can put together these packets and mail them or not.
I think the best way to do it is to, well, that's just my opinion. Now, I'm in here, maybe others wouldn't be, but I would think that if we left them the way it used to be in the file, when we stop in, we can pick them up, and if they're not available, or you don't get a chance to get in, then we could have it available, for instance, whoever's clerking for us could bring them in. Would you like to do it that way? The
That
other
always
option
worked.
would be to take the
That
time
always
to
worked.
print and download.
Okay, we'll do it that way.
Download,
That
print.
always worked.
But I did get an electronic copy of the agenda. I just wonder if
No.
maybe everything else didn't come through or something.
I think it may have been miscommunication in my
Well, there were
office.
also
Had
some
to
issues
start looking at plans.
server-wise, right, last week.
While it's being presented, we should always have it ahead of time, so we can
So
look it
next
out.
month's packets will be in the files.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way it used to be, so that works, if everybody's agreeable to that.
Yep.
Okay. All right, moving right along then, another item that was on the old business is the demolition delay legal opinion. We asked for a legal opinion on the demolition delay. The question was how it was going along. And we got a legal opinion, and it's a bit up to some interpretation. And I've discussed it with our town planner, David, and David's expressed an opinion, and I think the general consensus is that we'd like to get one more opinion before we take this. It's a little convoluted, in my opinion, but, and what I thought would be helpful would be to find out how it's being interpreted by another town or two in this area. Basically, the question is, does the demolition delay flow with the real estate, or does the demolition delay flow with the applicant? And that's what we'd like to get clarified. So does anyone have a question about, or an opinion?
I think it's logical that it sits with the applicant. But
I don't think that's what it said.
but I don't think that's what the opinion said.
Well,
So
I think
that's why
that
we're all-
in actuality, I discussed this with David Spitz, and we kind of think that that's kind of the way likely it would go.
Greg, you've given me a lead-in, so I'll jump in.
So go right ahead, yeah.
I think the opinion that you got could have been worded more clearly. However, I think it did say that it goes with the property.
Yeah,
property,
that's what I
yeah.
interpreted.
Now, I told Greg this afternoon that, you know, if you're looking for ammunition, then sure, go see what another town has done.
I think.
But at the moment,
Yeah.
the only opinion that's been given to you officially is that it goes with the property.
And as we discussed, which is probably going to bolster this even further, is that many times zoning relief goes with the real estate. Many times developers, I mean, in other cities and towns, I've seen this, and I'm not sure because I haven't studied the law in the town of Harwich, but zoning relief many times is something that a developer will work on and then sell the development to be developed. So if that's the way that it's written for the town of Harwich, then that's more likely probably what the attorney for the town has been trying to represent to us through that unclear statement. Go ahead, was there a question?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sorry.
What happens if you specify in the agreement for demolition delay that it goes with the ownership, not the property? Can you specify it?
No. Not in my opinion and not in my reading of the attorney's, town attorney's opinion.
So there can be no modification of the motion?
You can only impose a one-year delay on the property however you word it. So I don't think you can, on your own, modify it to say it goes with the applicant only. I don't think you have that authority. So that's what I had thought, that's what I've checked with couple other people, and that's what I read in the attorney's letter.
And to be perfectly honest, David, you did read the letter 1, 2, 3 times, as did I,
Yeah.
and it wasn't immediately apparent. It's a little convoluted, but
Yeah, I think it
that's
could have been
the-
worded better.
Yeah, it could have been worded better. Okay, well, I think that, so if the board would like, David has made a recommendation or a suggestion that we could ask for an opinion as to how it's being interpreted in other towns. It's not going to change anything because what is written as law is obviously written as law.
Yeah,
and
but
that's
I was asking if you made a motion to impose the delay, can you modify it in the motion?
Modify it to what, Bob?
Or modify it to that the delay goes with the,
No. With the applicant.
with the applicant?
Yeah, I don't think the underlying enabling legislation gives you that ability.
Well, it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Sally Urbano.
Good evening. I have a question, because I remember we discussed this a little bit back. Something to the effect of, if you give the demolition delay and you're doing it associated with the project, but then the project doesn't go through and the house has been demolished for essentially no reason, is there something that says, along with the demolition delay, if there's a project, but then there's a change in the project, that they would have to come back? I don't know.
I was just going to refer the question, but go ahead, David.
I think that's a variation on the same question. There is a historic building on a property. You can delay the demolition of that building for 1 year. That's your authority. And then if the only delay I know of is they come to you, then they go through the 1 year period. To make this more complicated, then they have to actually apply to the building department to demolish the building. And if they don't do that within 6 months, then they have to go back to the building department again. They still don't have to come back here again, because you've done the maximum of what you can do, which is a 1 year delay. So I don't know any other way to package that. I don't think it gives you any more authority than that. If we find that somebody else is doing it and can establish how they've done it, you know, I'm glad to do that, a little bit of research on that, to see if I can offer you a different answer, but as of tonight, I cannot.
I don't think that there's, I personally think that it's certainly not going to make, it wouldn't hurt this board in any way to ask David to do a little bit of further research and find out how it is being interpreted.
Oh, I think it's crucial for us.
By Chatham or Dennis or the Kings Highway Historic District or anything like that. But I think that until we find legal opinion otherwise, we kind of have to abide by the way it's written in its convoluted fashion.
Yep.
Today.
I agree.
General consensus of the board would be to ask David to go forward. I'm feeling, I guess I have that confirmation. So we'll,
It's the best I
we'll
can
look into
offer.
it.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, David, that you'd like to add?
Not on that item.
Okay. Moving right along, the update on Brooks Library, I looked at Gene Steiner.
Yes, they're still in the process of getting a letter together to go out to architects to select an architect for the project. So that's supposed to happen by the first week in April.
This is a project for those of you who weren't here, but Bob, I don't know how much information you up to snuff on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good, okay. Okay, then moving right along, I really would love it if you all have copies of these minutes,
Yep.
or if you've read the copies of these minutes, if we could get some of these approved, because we have such a backlog. We have available draft minutes now for July 1st, July 15th, August 5th, November 18th, December 16th, and January 20th. Has everyone had a chance to look at those at some point in time? Does anyone have any amendments, starting with the first and moving forward? Or any questions? I'd like to say at this time, thank you, a special thank you to David Spitz, who's stepped in the absence of a clerk and helped us, number one, helped me with this agenda, and also has been very helpful in expediting these minutes, because we've had clerical issues both in the office and with the clerk to the board. And I made it clear to the Board of Selectmen and to the departments that as a board, we're handicapped in as much as we're having a difficult time getting a full board presence. We certainly didn't have the time to clerk for ourselves and still accomplish the items that are on our agenda regularly. So I just wanted to take this time to thank David for helping us out here. It's really, you brought us up to snuff, just about.
Well, you got a bunch more next
I
time.
know, behind us. Are there any questions on these minutes? Does anyone feel comfortable enough to go ahead and make a motion to approve them together, or do you want to take them one by one?
I will point out that it doesn't matter whether you were at that particular meeting or not. So you have the ability to do them as a package if you so choose.
Yeah, and I did make that clear to the board members present before the hearing.
Yeah,
Yes, Jean.
Something I just read in here, and I think it's fine, it's just something that Bob Bradley said, and I think it's something that we have to keep in mind, which is on these demolition delays, that the only control is to keep scale and forces acceptance of the historic buildings they are buying. Real estate tells people they can tear these homes down, and we are fighting the system. And I think we really need to think of a way, and I'm hoping that maybe Wendy, as a Realtor, could help us think how to do this, but we need to get to the real estate community and just impress upon them the importance of these buildings.
And you know, I'm glad, Jean, that you brought that up, because it tends to be almost, buyers shouldn't always ever be naive when they're purchasing real estate. It's usually the biggest thing that any one person does in the course of their lives is to buy a home. But the truth of the matter is that the realtors in the town of Harwich and beyond should be honest and just let people know when they're purchasing a historic home that it is a historic home and it has historic significance. And that should be the case with any home, within the bounds of the town and beyond, but particularly in our town, because that's what we represent. And we're held to abide by the rules and regulations that have been put upon us by the town of Harwich. So for realtors to go ahead and represent a property, and many times they have, and I know of many that have been done that you can just, apply to have a demolition here. I agree, absolutely. Any other questions about the minutes? Okay, then I will entertain a motion from someone, please, to accept the minutes as have been presented, all of the minutes
So
Has-
moved.
Okay, and a second?
A second.
Okay, it's been made and seconded. The vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
And you get 4 or 5 more next time. Then we're up to, no, not quite, but then we're close.
Greg, can I make one quick comment?
Yes, Lou.
In
Quick.
terms of barns, yes, very quickly, I just want to make sure I understand. In terms of barns, while the board has been empathetic towards homeowners who have them and allowed some of them to be demolished, that's not every barn, nor will it be every barn in the future. Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Now, just for the record, I didn't vote on this particular one, and I have a soft spot in my heart for barns too. And I feel, and I think that probably the board may feel the same way, that we have to pick and choose when we have a home in a barn and a barn that's in salvageable condition. And we've over the years had to make decisions about barns and homes, and sometimes we have to pick and choose what's really the battle, and so forth. I guess we all
Can I
understand.
say one thing?
Yes, sir.
I regret my vote tonight. I think I should not have done that. And I think that the reason why is, after thinking about it a little further, the intent of the owner to improve her property with an exterior living quarters could have been handled in a different fashion, and the barn could have been restored. But I didn't vote that way.
And just for your benefit, those of us that did visit the house, and to give credit where credit is due, Gene Steiner scrutinized it. We spontaneously met there together, one property or the other, we met together and went to the next. And there's a barn next door, and there's a convoluted, in the properties that are adjoining, that the integrity of that particular barn in that particular location, there was no streetscape, there was nothing that really, you had to grab onto it and say, really, I want to hold this. So I think that the board probably did what was best.
But it was really compromised. I
Yep.
mean, I'm not a builder, I'm not an architect, but it was falling down.
I concur.
Yeah.
I concur. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved, seconded?
Second.
All those in favor, I won't argue. Thank you.